Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Drew. In today's video, we're going to be going over these are my opinions, but the best stances for each legend. I'm not going to give one answer for like each one. I might give like one or two because there are some that I can say are debatable on what's the best. So if you want to play a legend and you're not sure which stance to pick, this probably will help you out. So I'm going to go through all the legends and tell you which stance I think is the best, and this would be agreed on by most people, but maybe there are some exceptions. I'm not really sure, but yeah. So starting off with Bodvar, I suggest that we run the strength stance here, so we take out of Dex. That's going to be a theme running through this video. You're going to see a lot of taking out of the Dex because that is the worst stat. So I don't think this is really an option. I think strength stance is the best option for sure here. So yeah, let's go to Cassidy. Here's another like no-brainer. We definitely want to run defense here. It takes out a Dex and she only has 4 defense, so that's good. If she had a stance that gave her speed that wasn't taking out a defense, then I would run that, but as you can see, it takes out a defense to 3 defense, so that's definitely not worth it. So defense stance is definitely the best here for Cassidy. Next is Orion. I have the Black Knight crossover, that's why it looks like that. But here, I definitely say go for the defense stance because it takes out a Dex once again. Takes out a Dex, and the other stances, the only other stance that I might recommend here is a strength stance, but I still don't think that's very good. Having that 4 strength might be it might be hard to kill, but I think defense is definitely the best option here. Alright, so Lord Vrax, definitely not this stance, that's a prank stance, but the best stance here is definitely taking out of Dex into attack. It's the strength stance. Having 8 Dex is not necessary, and you definitely want to have having more than 4 attack is optimal because you want to be able to kill earlier. And I think like I would rather put in the defense here, but it takes out attack. Like that's not, having 3 attack is awful, so you don't want to do that either. So strength stance here is the best stance to go for, in my opinion. Okay, so Nash, this is an interesting one. He only has 3 Dex, so a lot of people like to run the 2 Dex stance, which gives you another defense point. I don't like running this because playing Spear with 2 Dex feels really slow. So I don't play this when I play Nash. I actually play the base stance because I just think that having that 3 Dex is enough, but having 2 Dex is just, it makes me feel really slow with my like strings on Spear and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my thing on there. So either defense stance or base stance, whatever you want. Queen Nai, this is a no-brainer. You definitely want speed stance, like 100%. Running 3 speed is really bad. She's one of the worst legends in the game because of how low her speed is. So 100%, take the speed stance on this one, okay? 100%. Alright. Next, we got Hattori. There's 2 options for Hattori, in my opinion. We can either go defense stance and get another stat in defense and take 1 out of speed, or we can run the 9 speed and take out a Dex. In my opinion, I think the defense one is better here because having 4 defense is quite low. We want to be able to survive longer, and that 8 to 9 speed difference honestly doesn't seem like much of a difference to me. So in my opinion, I'd go for the defense stance, but if you want to, you can go for the speed stance as well. Alright, so Roland is next. The stance I'd run here would either be the defense stance to go for 9 and take out a Dex, or we can run the speed stance here and take out a defense. I think both of those options are good. Even base stance maybe if you really want to, but speed or defense I'd say are the 2 best. Like once again, 4 speed is pretty low, so taking that extra speed is nice. And then also, if you like, Dex is almost useless, especially on Lance. So I mean, not especially on Lance, but like it's bad. It's bad. So if you want to take out a Dex and get an extra defense stat, that would also be a good idea. But I think speed would probably be your best bet here to make sure you're not super slow. With Scarlet, I think these are the same 2 options. You can either take out a Dex to defense like the last one, or you can go for speed stance. This is what I recommend the most, the speed stance, because once again, 4 speed is very slow. You want to have, usually 5 is a good speed to have, and higher obviously, but 5 is like the lowest that I would want to go, so I'd probably run speed stance here and take out of attack. Next we got Thatch. I'd run defense stance 100% because he has 3 defense. Any 3 defense legend, if possible, I would run the defense stance. This does take out a speed, but it's fine because he has a relatively high speed anyways. It still stays at 6, so that's pretty good. So definitely defense here. And then next is Ada. Same deal here. Go defense because she has 3 base defense. And that takes out a dex, so it's actually working out good. So that's an easy one. Next is Sentinel. You can either take out of... Actually... Here's the thing. Actually, I would run. I'd run Dexterity Stance here because you need to get that down air into D-Light true combo on guitars. So I would actually run. A Dex Stance here, believe it or not. So yeah, let's do that. Next, definitely on Lucian, you want to run attack because he has 3 strength. That's awful. So run the strength stance, attack stance, whatever you want to call it. It takes out of his 8 speed to 7, so not a big deal at all there. So that's my option there. Taros, one of my main legends. I play base stance on Taros because I think all these stances are bad. The only possible one to run maybe would be speed stance. A lot of people run this because it takes out a dex, of course. But like I said earlier, I don't really like running 2 dex. That seems like a little bit too low for me. So I just run base stance like that. Yeah. Next is Brent, another legend I play. I definitely run attack stance here. The only argument to not run it, the only other argument I can think of is to run dex stance for Sayer into Enlight true combo, but it's really not worth it in my opinion because you can still hit it like 1 or 2 dodge frames without this. So I'd definitely go strength stance here. Next is a Siri. Strength stance again, the best option here because you take out a really high dex that is not necessary, and you already have low strength, so I definitely want to add another point to that. So that's a pretty simple one. Next would be Braza. Braza, I definitely run speed stance because, once again, 4 speed is slow, and it takes out his really high stat of defense, so it's not a big deal to take out of there. So I definitely go for speed there. Ember, once again, a 3 defense legend, so definitely add a defense point there if possible, so that will work out good for her. Azoth, once again, 4 speed, you want to add another speed point there to make it 5. 5 is usually a good amount, like I said earlier. So definitely a speed stance would be the best option for him. Next is Koji. This is a really easy one, no brainer. Run defense stance. You do not need 8 dex whatsoever. That is almost useless. So definitely go defense because he has 4 in the first place. So that would be the best option there. Olgram. You could either run the speed stance or I guess base. I guess just these two, speed or base, because you do not. I honestly think taking 2 dex on this legend is fine because you really don't need a dex for axe or lance too much. So I'd probably run that 2 dex. Diana, I would probably run the speed stance on her. I don't have the stances because I don't play this legend at all. Literally have never played her, and I probably won't. I don't like her. I don't even have her unlocked, but she's free right now, so that's why I have her. I'd run speed stance on Diana. That would be my. I think that takes out a dex, so whatever takes out a dex if you aren't sure for that. Jala, 3 defense, so always add into defense if they're 3. So that's easy, and it also takes out a dex, so that works out well. Core, this is, I think the best option here would either be run speed to get out of the 4 speed like I said earlier, or run strength to take out of dex because dex is useless. So yeah, I'd probably run speed though. That would be my best bet. Wushang, definitely run attack stance. You don't need 7 dex, especially with... And honestly, it's actually good that you take out a dex here because you'll still have 6 dex, which is what you need to get Sayer into Enlight True Combo and Spear. So definitely attack stance there, strength stance. Val, let's see. Yeah, I'd run strength stance here. Or defense, actually. Strength or defense, because, once again, taking out a dex, you don't really need dex, and defense is always nice to have. But she does have a quite low speed, or quite low attack, so I would also recommend adding an attack point there. So that's up to you, whatever you want. If you want to have more defense, or if you want to have more strength. Alright, Ragnar, take out of dex here to go defense, because, like I said, you need that 5 dex to do down air into D-Light True on guitars, so that's 5 still left, so definitely do that. Next is Cross. We can probably run speed to take out a dex. Oh, I don't have the other stances actually. That's awkward. I'd recommend running speed here because we don't need we don't need high dex. It's just everyone knows that. So probably run speed there. Mirage, probably defense. Let's see. Yeah, defense would definitely be the best one here. 4 defense is low. We want to, if a legend has a low defense or a low speed, I'd recommend putting it into there. If they have a low dex, that's actually good, so don't worry about that. But low defense or speed is usually bad, so you want to add an extra point there if possible. Next is Nyx. You can just balance out the stats here. She's pretty straightforward balanced stats. I would throw it into attack here, so you can have a more balanced stat line here. Or you can run speed if you really wanted to, but I mean that might be a good option. But I don't really like having that low attack, so I'd probably go for attack stance here, because she already has a high defense anyways. Next is Mordex. Probably would run attack stance here to take out of dex. The only other option is if there is any. Nah, not really. I'd run base or strength stance here because you don't need dex. Next is Yumiko. Definitely want to run 100% want to run this attack stance here. She does have a low defense as well, but if you do defense stance, you take out of attack, which is not what you want. So you want to take out of dex for a strength here. So definitely do that. Artifice next. I would take out of speed for defense. Some people like running 9 speed, but I mean, like I said earlier, it's the same situation as Hattori. If you want to run 9 speed, that's fine. I honestly don't think it makes much of a difference, so I would go for that defense stance to get the 5 defense, but it's up to you on that one. Next is Caspian. Definitely want to run the defense stance here. You don't want to have that low. You don't have that low defense. Also, you could run speed stance, but once again, you probably want to get that 5 defense instead of 4, because that would probably definitely be nice for staying alive longer. Sidra, run defense stance. You do not need dex here. She has actually some of the best stats in the entire game. Taking out dex into defense when your dex is already low is just amazing. So definitely run that defense stance there. Next is Zol. I have the crossover called Amethyst. The 2 options here would be strength or speed. Most people think speed is better because 4 speed is low. In my opinion, I like running that defense stance because it takes out dex. But one of those is, either of those work. In my opinion, I like to run the defense because I don't need the dex on either weapon, so that's my reasoning behind that. Next is Kaya. This is a little bit of a weird one. You could run defense to get 8 defense. You could run attack stance. I'd probably run one of the 2 of those, either defense or strength stance, but most likely strength. Because you do, like I said before, you don't really need dex, so taking out dex is usually the best option if you can do that. So yeah. For Isaiah, speed stance probably would be your best bet, or strength stance because it takes out of dex. But 4 speed's pretty low, so I probably recommend taking that speed stance to get the extra speed point. Giro, of course, you definitely want to take out of defense. Even though it takes out of attack, you still need 4 defense. 3 defense is just way too low, so you definitely want to go defense on him. That's easy. Linfe, another one like Yumiko. You want to go attack because defense will take out of your attack, and you'll have 2 attack, which is awful, so don't do that. Run strength stance on her. That's 100% what I recommend there. Zarya, speed stance for sure here. You don't want to have 4 speed if you can't, or if you can avoid it. And he has high attack anyway, so that works out pretty well. Rayman, run speed as well because it takes out of dex, and you'll have a really high speed, 7 speed, which is really nice to have. So that one's quite easy to do. Dusk, I think there's options here. I don't have all the stances actually, but yeah, let's go. I say defense, or the one that takes out of dex. I don't know which one that is because I don't have the stance. I could go into the trading room if I wanted to, but for sake of time, defense stance would probably be your best bet because 4 defense is low, like I said multiple times already. And a fate, another one, same exact thing here. Taking out of attack, putting in defense because 4 defense is low. Pretty easy. Thor, I'd run speed because you don't need dexterity on, especially on hammer, and orb. I don't think you really need it that bad either, so I'd definitely run speed here. Petra, there's options for Petra. I think that the stats on Petra are eh. I'd probably run defense. 4 defense is low. The only problem is it does take out speed. You go to 5, which is still good enough. The only other option I would say is speed stance to take out of dex, but I don't like running 4th defense, so I usually would just go for the defense stance there. Okay, so Vector. Let's see what I think for Vector. I haven't looked at his stats actually. I probably run strength because it takes out dex, or is that it? Yeah, just strength. That's best bet there. Strength or base if you don't have them. but definitely strength there because you don't need the 4 dex. He has really good stats actually. I didn't really notice that. Next is Volkov. He has really bad stats. You would like to have 5 speed here, but it takes out of your attack to 3, so that's really bad. So your best bet is just to take out a dex, go to attack stance. But yeah. Onyx, there's 2 options here. You can either go for the 9 defense stance and go for 4 attack, which I've done, and I've switched my mind, or changed my mind on what I think here. That's what I used to run. Now I run the speed stance because having that 4 attack is actually pretty bad. You can't kill. So I definitely go for speed stance because it also takes out a dex, so it actually works out pretty well. I think speed stance is your best bet there. Last 2 here are Jaehyun and Mako. Jaehyun, I'd probably go for attack stance here, strength stance. You don't need the dex running theme throughout the whole video. You don't need dex for most things at least. So I definitely recommend that. Yeah, that's probably your only option other than base stance is just to run attack stance. Next is Mako. I'd run defense stance here. You don't really... People love to run their speed stance to 9, but I don't recommend that, especially when you only have 4 attack, or 4 defense, sorry. You definitely want to bump it up to 5, so that's my opinion on that. And that is every single legend. So if you guys enjoyed the video, or if it helped, please be sure to leave a like and sub. I'd appreciate that. Let me know if you disagree with anything. I'll check it out and see what I think about it, and I'll respond to your comment. But if you have any questions or anything, let me know. When in doubt, take out a dex. That's all I have to say. When in doubt, take out a dex. Alright guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.